Hi, everyone. Welcome.
Hello, Eric. How are you?
Hi, Regina.
Hi,
Hi,
Roberto.
Lena, Alberto, Alexis.
Hi, Eric.
Hi, Pamela.
Hi.
If you could introduce yourself in the chat, please. A couple questions there. Your program, your role, and a warm-up question for us is, what are some things your program is doing to provide structure and predictability for students this semester? Let us know if you need help finding the chat. Stephen, you're muted. You see where to unmute yourself?
Hi, Eric. Hi.
Hi, how you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
Very well. Nice to see you.
Good to be seen. Let me tell you. Yep.
Do you find the chat?
Yes. Let me introduce myself.
Eric,
Yes, Elena.
I didn't hear the warm-up question.
It should be on the screen. Hopefully you're seeing it, but it's.
Oh my God, sorry.
No worries. No worries. But it's, yeah. What are some things your program is doing to provide structure and predictability for students this semester?
So that's something for us to that we'll be chatting about?
Yeah, just in the next few minutes.
Sure.
Just a warm-up question. I'm hoping that some of what we talk about will help with that. I guess that's why I'm asking.
And there is a question, Eric, you said?
Yeah, do you not see it on the screen here?
I see it. Okay, I got it now. Doing to provide structure. And put that in the chat, huh?
Yeah, put your answer in the chat, please. Thank you.
Trying to think, what are we doing to provide predictability? How do I say we're having that meeting tomorrow? I mean, that's really what's going on.
You can say it verbally too. That's fine.
Okay, but I'll write it in. I need to practice. Some water.
So welcome if you're just joining us. We're responding to this warm-up question in the chat. Hopefully you can see it. You'll see there's some people are responding. I'll just share verbally a couple things that I'm seeing here. Alexis writes that her program Brooklyn College is trying to set up a uniform set of rules for virtual instruction. Alexis, could you tell us just a little bit about what that might entail? You could go ahead and unmute.
Basically, we were talking about, number one, that students, at least for the first part of the Zoom, must appear on screen so we could take attendance. We're trying to actually come up with some like Zoom etiquette. So, you know, really telling students you have to set aside a block of time somewhere in your house or apartment where you can quietly kind of do this learning experience. Also that sometimes if there's noise in people's houses, it's okay if they mute themselves. That maybe also we were saying that depending on the number of classes we have, which is about 10 weeks, we're going to make some, as usual, attendance requirements, just like we did when we had in-person classes, maybe an 80% attendance, but also that a lot of this is going to be also not only in-person, not in-person, but synchronous and asynchronous experience, that we're counting on our students also to be able to work independently. So we want to tell them up front, there's the Zoom component, but there's also this independent component. So we're having all of our teachers, as usual, set up their Schoology accounts, really asking students to, you know, remain connected with us, whether if they have a computer, a phone, iPad, whatever it is, also to have some backups. They're going to have technical difficulties. So what happens, we're trying to figure out as a program, what happens if someone just can't get on? Their internet goes down, their Wi-Fi is no good. So always to have backups. So students, I know I have a meltdown when I can't get in. I was on my PC, I couldn't get in. So I ran and got my iPad, I had to prop it up, have to recharge it, like all of these small little steps to prepare for in this new kind of learning experience.
Thank you, Alexis. That's really, you know, it's interesting because you're identifying a lot of the issues that we're all trying to figure out here. So my goal today, I think we should go ahead and jump in because we have a fair amount to get through. But I guess I would say, feel free to interrupt me at any time. The beginning of this meeting will be me talking a fair amount and showing some stuff. But the second half, I'm building in time for you to work in small groups to try it out on your own and see, you know, do some problem solving together. But, you know, if I'm going too fast or something doesn't make sense, if you have a question that comes up, please stop me. I mean, there are times where I might have to just go forward because we'll run out of time, but please stop me if something doesn't make sense. Feel free to unmute at any time. I probably won't follow the chat that carefully, so please stop me if there's something there that I should know about. So my goals today are to go through a fair amount of stuff related to setting up a class. This isn't about really using Zoom so much. I mean, it's related to that, but this is not a workshop on how to teach with Zoom. I'm scheduling an introduction to Zoom soon that I'll give the information to you later about that. This is basically about setting up a class. I mean, setting up Zoom and scheduling your class and making sure that you're ready for the first day of class. So we're going to look at first, like logging into Zoom. I think most people are, if not everyone is getting, I think everyone's getting a CUNY Zoom account, and hopefully a number of people have been successful in getting that account. The login is a little different than for me than it was previously, and so I'd like to go over that in case you had trouble there. And then looking at the settings, there are some things in the settings that you'll want to change, especially if you want to do things like polling, have students share their screen, use breakout rooms. So I want to go through some of those options because things won't we actually had a meeting yesterday. We were hoping to do breakout rooms, but we just forgot to make that option available in the settings, and we just couldn't do breakout rooms. So that rather than being surprised when you try and do something you can't do it, we should look at it now. I want to go look at using recurring meeting sessions so that you can schedule your whole semester of classes, with one link, one registration link. Registration and recurring meetings are not the same thing, and it's not necessary to use registration in order to have a recurring meeting, but I'm recommending that people use registration. And we'll look at that and what that means. It basically means that students have to register for your class rather than having a link and a password that was the same for everybody. They'll have to register individually. We'll look at approving registration, sending links to students through Zoom. There's a way to customize an automatic confirmation letter that Zoom sends. I sent one out this morning, and maybe you got it with some notes from me. So I want to show you how you can do that as well, if that's something that you think might be useful. And then something I just learned about last week is that Zoom, you can actually take attendance on who came to your session. That wasn't available last semester, to my knowledge. I think it's a new thing. It's actually really cool. You can look and see how long each student was in your class and who came, which is really useful, because otherwise you're just kind of like trying to take a photograph of the screen or something, So I think attendance is much easier now than it was before. So we'll look at that quickly. So that's it. So I'm going to jump into sharing my Zoom window. I make some notes here that I'll send to you later, but this is mostly like notes to refer to later, not so much what we'll look at now. It was just in case I couldn't
Is it
connect or
possible
something.
to make that a little bigger?
Well, here, let me switch. I'm going to switch actually out of this document, and let me see what I can do. Yeah. So what happened to my screen here? This is funny. So
I think if you stretch your screen, this Google, whatever it is, you could like just make it bigger. Or maybe not. Oh, yeah.
for some reason, oh, I know what it is. Sorry, forgive me. I'm just have my, I forget when I look out in, like I'm looking off into space, I have a second monitor where you all are. So sorry for that. Okay, so let me see. This is my Zoom window, which we're going to look at a fair amount. Is this visible? Should I increase the size of this? Does that help? How's that?
It's visible on a computer. If you're logging on with a phone, you would probably have to, manually expand it.
Yeah, so but this is really for now, is just for you, so you can follow along. This won't be for students. It's really just to make sure that you can follow what I want to share. So the first thing I want to point out, I'm not sure if anyone has, how many people, maybe like just a show of hands, I can see most people, or you could indicate how many people have gotten their CUNY Zoom login. Okay, a few, not everyone. Okay, so this is, okay, some folks, thank you. It's still important for some people, and how many people have been successful in logging in with it? A little bit less, okay. So when you go to the Zoom .us login, it's gonna look something like this, right?
Yeah.
And for me, when I had a previous account, CUNY had an account, I would put my email address here and my password here and log in and I'm done. But with the CUNY first login, there's a different way that you have to log in. So you have to go in using this sign in with SSO. So if you want to make a note for yourself, look for SSO. I don't know what that stands for. I guess know what that means. But and you click on that, it's going to ask for your company domain. For us, that's CUNY. So you click on SSO, type CUNY, and then continue, and then you put in your CUNY first login. So or whatever login that you've been given in order to access the CUNY Zoom. For me, I have it loading automatically. So it's sort of a two-step process that you have to do to get in there. I think it might also be possible just to type in cuny.zoom.us and skip that first step. Not sure. Then I hit sign in. Let's see what happens. So that's one way to do it. So it skips that. So you could go to cuny.zoom.us and then it's just one step. But if you see that SSO option, look for that. That's what you want. So then I'm logging in. So we're going to do some stuff with scheduling, but before we do that, I'd like us to look at settings.
Eric, could I ask a question?
Please.
It's my understanding that in order to utilize the university's Zoom, you need to be on CUNY first. And I'd be curious how the participants in this webinar were able to get onto CUNY first, because I was in touch with my IT person, and I don't think it's automatic. I don't think you can just go to zoom.us if you're not in CUNY first.
That's my understanding as well. Does anyone have more information about what the process was to get the login?
I think, this is Kristen, I think Moira sent out an email that said who to get in touch with at your campus. So it's not necessarily the IT director. So the woman who was just speaking, she might want to check to see if she's had that email from Moira. But that's probably a good starting place to find who she needs to talk to. And it means they need to establish a CUNY first account for you. And so that's the first step, and it requires some paperwork. So look for that email from Moira.
Kitty, we could talk about this afterwards too.
Okay,
yeah.
I don't want to take up.
For most people, that will mean going, if you haven't been, this isn't already in process, then you should be talking to your program manager, and program managers can speak to us if they need more information. I don't have it offhand, but I can find it. So once you log into Zoom, there's these different options on the left, and hopefully folks are a little bit familiar with this maybe. But the two that you're probably going to use the most are meetings, where you actually schedule your classes, and that's where we'll do the registration and that sort of thing, and settings, where you make changes to what's available, what options you want in your classes. And we'll actually also look at reports, because reports is where you can see the attendance for a class after it happens. You can also, this is one place you can go to see who's registered for your class as well. You can see that in a couple different places. But I would start at settings. And there's a lot of stuff here, but some of the stuff I want to point out, I guess, if you want students to go into a waiting room, it's the first option here is a waiting room, and so this is a security option. In truth, it's not actually necessary if you use registration. If you just send a password and a meeting ID to students, then you do need to have a waiting room or some way to manage who might come into the class. The thing is, like, if you just give people a meeting ID and a password, they could share that with a friend. It could get put on Instagram. Who knows? It could be sent anywhere, right? And then anybody has that meeting ID and password could show up in your class. And it's happened. I don't know if everyone's heard about Zoom bombing, but people are gonna get there and could cause a lot of havoc, and it's pretty traumatic if the wrong person shows up, right? So you don't want people to show up who aren't registered for, or shouldn't be in the class. Now, you don't have to use registration, but if you don't use registration, you probably should use a waiting room. You definitely need to use a password, and you need to make sure that that password doesn't get shared all over the place. But if you use registration, you don't need to worry about the waiting room. I don't like the waiting room, honestly, because it means when someone shows up, you have to keep letting them in. I would rather everyone just shows up. If they're supposed to be here, they should just come on in,
Yeah.
Was there a question or a comment? So let me point out a couple things here as we go down. There's a bunch of options here. We can't go through them all. But I do recommend that you do. I recommend that you go to your settings and spend some time like looking at each of these things and thinking about which ones you might want on.
Eric,
Yes, please.
how different are the settings in this CUNY SSO Zoom from settings in regular Zoom?
If you have a professional account, they're exactly the same. If you have a free account, there are a couple things that are different. I think you can't do a poll with a free account. There's some other things.
I think free account, you also can't do call-in. People cannot call in if you're using a free account.
Right. And then obviously there's the time limit. But,
oh yeah.
But if it's a professional account, it should be exactly the same.
Yeah. Okay.
This is an option that I kind of like, join before host. That means that students or people you're scheduling a meeting with could actually join the meeting and start, even if you're not there.
And is that okay if, I mean, I think there are security issues with that, but you're saying that even if they are registered, then that should be okay.
I mean, maybe somebody has we'll find an issue with that. But if your students are registered and you know who's supposed to be here, there's no chance of anyone showing up who's not supposed to be there. And so the question is, I mean, would we let students come to the classroom when you're not there yet? For me, it feels like a similar question. Like, could students come in a few minutes early? But maybe it's a program decision about whether you want them to join before you're there. I just understand if I'm going to be a few minutes late, like if you schedule a meeting with colleagues, for me, I prefer to have join before host, because otherwise I'm sitting there waiting for whoever scheduled the meeting, and I prefer just to start talking to whoever shows up. I'm sorry, go ahead, Sarah.
If they're registered, does that preempt the waiting room?
It doesn't preempt it, but it sort of makes the waiting room, well, I don't know what you mean exactly, but it means the waiting room isn't quite as necessary because...
For example, if they can join before host, will they be going to the waiting room or directly in?
It doesn't, actually, if you have the waiting room, the join before host doesn't function. Like the waiting room has precedence. So if you have the waiting room on, the waiting room is, yeah. So as you can see, it's on here, but I have the waiting room on at the very beginning of this session and nobody could come in. So the waiting room always keeps people out until you approve them.
I think it's a nice idea. Yeah. So it's a nice idea to have students enter before, yeah.
I don't know, I think it's something to consider. Let me point out a couple. So private chat is actually something that isn't allowed by CUNY policy. There's CUNY Zoom protocols that I'll share with you all later that I'm not sure if you're familiar with. But one of the things they've said is that they don't want one-to-one chat. So if you notice in the chat now in this meeting, you may be able to chat individually with another person. You could choose someone's name and send them a private message. CUNY policy is that they don't want that to be able to happen in classes. That students should be able to write to you or write to everybody else in the class, but not to each other individually.
That's really not good because you could design some class activities that involve private chatting, and you'll get more people working together at the same time.
It's true. I mean, so maybe it's possible to push back on that. It was part of this initial security when there was a lot of concern originally about Zoom security settings, and it hasn't changed that I've seen since the spring. I'll share that with you so you can see the details. Okay, a couple things that are important here. If you want polling has to be turned on. Like so, and we'll go over polling in one of these other meetings, but if you want to send a poll to your students and have them respond, you have to have it turned on here. If you want students to be able to share their screen, if you want to share your screen yourself, this has to be on. It should be on by default, I'd say, but in terms of here, it might be set to host only, which means students couldn't possibly share their screen. So if you want them to share a screen, it has to be set to all participants. Same thing's true with annotation. If you want students being able to annotate the screen, that has to be turned on.
Can you explain what that is?
Whiteboard. Say it again.
Can you explain what that is?
Sure. I mean, annotation is let's see, I can show you quickly, or someone else could show. I do have the option right now. So you could, you can actually write on the screen, right? Real messy, but
Can you type on the screen?
you you can type. Yes, you can type.
Okay.
So you can do it on whatever you're sharing or a whiteboard. Yep. Yeah, right. So exactly, it does mean that like once you scroll again, things will look a little. Well, thank you for clearing that. But the annotation would stay even though everything's moving behind it. Let me see. Is there anything else here? Because we need to get into the registration. Breakout rooms, right? So if you want to use breakout rooms, moving your students into small group discussion, that has to be on here.
I've got one more question about annotation.
Yeah, sure.
Can the host modify what somebody annotates?
Not that I know of. You can erase it. I don't think you can, like if someone types it like in a text box and you want to go in there and edit the text box, I don't believe so.
Okay.
Yeah, there are other whiteboards available that are not within Zoom, right? There's all online whiteboards. I'm thinking about doing a workshop on those. I'm still kind of researching the different ones. That those have more flexibility, but they're not quite as easy to use because they're not in Zoom.
No, you can't.
Whiteboard is hard to use. Zoom's whiteboard is hard to use.
I find that as well, yeah. I'm sorry, was there one more comment?
I was just going to say that you cannot correct their items, but you could write over it. Like they have, like a line, you could put a line through it and write over it. But if you go to just delete one thing, the entire word or sentence will come right off.
Right. Yeah, so it's not that flexible. There are other whiteboards where you could edit what anybody puts in there. And so maybe in a different meeting, we could spend some time on that. I'm gonna move a little quicker because I'm realizing we're starting to run out of time for this piece. So breakout rooms, which I know a lot of people use, if you want to use a breakout room, it has to be turned on here, right? Otherwise it won't work. Virtual backgrounds, if you want students to be able to have.
Excuse me, Eric.
Yeah, please.
Does the private chat feature work in breakout room? Like, can you, if you're on private chat, can you talk to people in your breakout room? Can you chat?
I think that's probably true wherever. If it's not allowed in one place, I think it wouldn't be allowed elsewhere. I mean, in a breakout room, you're just chatting with whoever's in the breakout room. But you mean one-to-one chatting, I suppose, right?
Right, but in the breakout room, you still have to chat to the whole group in the room.
I believe that's the policy. I don't know precisely. I mean, I think it depends on the settings. I mean, technically, I think you could do it so it's one-to-one, but I think the policy is that it's supposed to be group only.
Okay, thank you.
And you may have noticed I just changed my background, the virtual background. So if you want students to be able to do that, it's not available on every device, unfortunately. Like, so I think on an iPhone, you can't use a virtual background, on an Android phone, but on a computer you can do it. So, for privacy purposes, it's nice to allow students to be able to do that.
One more question, please.
Please.
Can you share your screen? When they go into breakout rooms, can the host share a screen that will show up in every breakout room?
No. So that's actually a good reason why I think it's useful to teach students how to share their screen. Right, so if you want students, and we'll be doing that today, right, in small groups, I'm going to ask somebody in the group to share their screen so you're all looking at the same thing. But if you want students to share their screens in breakout rooms so they can all see the same thing on the screen together, I mean, they could all be looking at something separately, but it wouldn't be on the screen. Yeah, and you can't share something. Your screen sharing is only when you're in one big group.
I know you're pressed for time, but you skipped over the file sharing thing in chat. And I think that like if I'm a teacher and I want my students to be looking at something while they're in a breakout room and I can't share my screen with them, they can access whatever it is I want them to look at also on their simultaneously on their computer when they're in the breakout room, but only if I've sent that file through the file sharing in my chat to them before the breakout room.
I'm looking for that option. Oh, here it is. Yeah, I think you're right. That is one way to do it. It's not the only way to do it. And unfortunately, it's another one of those things that it's part of the CUNY security protocol that you're not supposed to have that option on for security reasons.
No
Uploading
file
files.
sharing.
Yeah, I don't know what the, you know, but I think maybe it's because people could upload inappropriate files. I'm not sure, but it's not, it's part of that protocol that you're not supposed to do that. There are other ways to share files. I think, you know, maybe through a link, a URL, sending it by email in advance. That'd be something for us to talk about and strategize. But unfortunately, I think that's an option that's not supposed to be available to us.
Wow, and that's new, or that's always been the case?
I think it's been that way. We can look later at that document, but I think it's been that way. I know that document maybe is not as widely available as it, you know, but I've seen it. Yeah.
Eric, they never had this contract before. This contract is brand new.
Yeah, but people were using Zoom even before there was a contract. Some campuses.
No, I know, but they weren't using it with the universities imprimatur.
Yeah, but it basically was when, you know, when the DOE dropped Zoom, like back in March or April. CUNY's response was to be specific about the security controls that they wanted to, so that they felt they could continue using Zoom. You know, it was a big hubbub in the news and all that. But I'll share it later so people can look at the details. I had nothing to do with writing it. Let's see. I think that for now is the main things in the settings. There's a bunch of stuff here, and I encourage you to spend some time there. I know it's not the most exciting thing, but it could be helpful. So the thing I really want to focus on for the next few minutes before you get a chance to practice it is how to schedule a meeting in a recurring way with registration. And so the idea that you could schedule a meeting that would, this is one meeting for the whole semester. If anybody ever wanted to go to your class, like a student, a case manager, director, PD staff, we want to come visit, right? It's always one link. You know what the registration link is. It doesn't change over the course of the semester. And if if you drop a student, you can drop the student and you don't have to change the link, right? That was an issue with for some reason, like God forbid, there's a student who really just don't want to come to class anymore. They do something inappropriate. They shouldn't be there anymore. It happens, right? So the only way to change that, if you give people an ID and a password, the only way to change that is you have to change the ID or the password so that the student can't come anymore. And there's confusion around that. So registration helps it so you can actually manage who is supposed to be in the class and who isn't.
You can remove a participant and make it so that they can never join again, and that's in the settings, if I'm not mistaken.
And you always know in Zoom who's your class. Like it's all there, right? So it's not like you send it out to a bunch of people you don't know exactly who might show up. You know who the class is. So let's schedule a meeting. Let's see here. So to schedule a meeting, you go to meetings here on the left. I'm going to choose schedule a meeting. Let's call it, I don't know. Let's call it ESL 2. I don't know. You can put a description in here if you like. Let's say it starts next week on the 14th, right? So I choose the start date of the 14th. Let's say it's a morning class. I'm going to choose the start time. Let's say it's 10 a.m. maybe. And let's say it's 90 minutes. That's for, that's a recommendation we're making for Zoom classes. I mean, obviously some programs will do shorter or longer classes, but we've recommended that as maybe an optimal time. Sort of feels like a nice length. It's the length of this meeting. So we have the start time, and then you just put the duration. You don't have to put the end time. Make sure you have the time zone. You don't have to change. And then here, in order to make it work for the rest of the semester, you're going to click on recurring. So you're going to check mark here. And now it's ready to recur through the semester. And then so you can change the recurrence. What I would choose is a weekly recurrence, right? It's not gonna, the class isn't every day, right? So if it's weekly, then you can choose the days that the class meets. So let's say it's a Tuesday, Thursday class. It's gonna meet every 1 week, right? Not every other week. It's gonna meet every week. And you just check the days when the class meets. So I will say it meets Tuesday, Thursday. We know it's 10 starts, it's 90 minutes. Now we choose an end date. For the class, it could be just the end of the semester. So how about the 18th? It seems like a common end date for classes. It'll only schedule on the 18th if that's one of the days that it's recurring, right? So the 18th happens to be a Friday. It won't schedule on Friday. It's only going to schedule these Tuesday and Thursday sessions. So that's it for the recurring part. And that means you're going to have, I guess, it tells us 28 classes in that time period. The other thing I'm recommending is that we use required registration. And so that in order to use registration, you have to require it. So you put a check mark here. The default option here is fine. Attendees register once and can attend any of the occurrences, right? So they're going to register just once for the class, and they can show up to any class, hopefully all of them, right? There's other options if you want a student to register for every class. Of course, we don't want that. There's different kinds of events, but in this case, just one registration.
If we have, there's going to be like Thanksgiving holiday, so my class is not going to meet over Thanksgiving holiday. I thought there was a setting here where you could actually do it like date by date, just to confirm, so that students don't get a notification that week that they have to show up for class that week. You know what I mean?
That's a good point. I don't know of a way to do it in advance, but there is a way to delete an occurrence of the class after it's scheduled.
I saw that in another webinar. I'm not seeing it here on this setting sheet, though. I don't know why.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, that's something that occurred to me, but I don't know. Yeah, I don't know about that.
Yeah.
If you find out about it, let us know. We could look at it after. There is a way that you can go in at each scheduled occurrence, and you can go ahead and delete one of them.
That
Like,
must
so
be
you
it.
can go to the one on Thanksgiving after it's scheduled and delete that one occurrence. That's one way to do it.
Do students get do they actually get a notification every week with, like, even though they've registered, they don't get a notification every week?
It's
saying
not
time for
scheduled.
class?
Not that I know of. No, I think there's a way to do it manually. So what I tend to do is like, the evening before the class or a few hours before the class, I go in and trigger an automatic email to all the students, and I'll show you how to do that. So one other thing is you're going to want a passwords. You should have passwords for your classes even when they're registered. So it doesn't matter what it is. And hopefully students aren't actually entering it. They're just clicking on a link that has that password embedded in it. So it's not like they have to remember the password. They're going to get a link that they follow, and it opens up the class. So hopefully the password is not something you really have to worry about too much. You don't have to change it afterwards. And that's it. That's it for those two settings. This other stuff, you can mess around with it, but it's really not required. All this other stuff doesn't change, and we hit save, and it's done. There are 28 occurrences scheduled, and this is the registration link for all of them. And so you can copy the invitation. This is similar to other invitations, but you'll notice, if you've done this before, you'll notice that this invitation is much simpler than other ones that you may have sent. In other ones, it has the meeting ID and the password and about 25 phone numbers that people could call and yada, yada. But in this case, they don't have any of that information yet because they haven't registered. So they need to register, and this is what they register with, just that link. And then after that, it's automatic communication back and forth between Zoom and them.
Eric, I have a question.
Yeah.
Is it mandatory to use recurring meeting? According to CUNY's protocol, security.
I don't think so.
Okay, because you still, because in the old Zoom, in the other Zoom, I copied the meeting invitation because I have students who only use phones. They don't look at everything every few days. So I used to send out an invitation every week. Otherwise, some of them wouldn't find it. They would need to follow up anyway. So, so in other words, it's not required. It's not mandatory to use recurring meeting.
Yeah, but I think what you're talking about is I think what you're asking about is registration, no? Recurring meeting means like it schedules all the classes for the whole semester at once.
Registration and recurring meeting.
So the registration part, is that required? No, I think I'm recommending it.
Okay.
But I understand what you're saying. You know, students have trouble finding an email potentially.
That's what happens to a third of my class. They don't check emails. They get inundated with emails. They lose them. They can't find them. And so that's why I ended up doing an invitation with the possibly everything embedded, and all they had to do was click on the link to make it simple and easy for a third of the class who are not very used to this.
Yeah, and if that's what works for your student in your program, then I think that's the decision you should make. There's some of the reasons why I like this. I'll rattle off a couple of them. The first one, that like one of the major ones, is that when I have a class of 20 students show up, they all have their full name displayed. I don't get any iPads or Galaxy 7s or whatever iPhones. Yeah, they're all their full name. Everyone's there because they registered in advance.
That's probably the biggest.
I understand. I understand your point, Eric. But all of my students have all their names. They don't.
So Ruby, I'm not trying to convince you of anything. You should do what is appropriate for your class. I'm just talking about why I like it.
I understand. I heard you.
Even if you registered, you could still send them, you know, before every class the link.
That's right, and I want to show you a little bit about how you can do that. So,
okay.
So here's the link. Let's see what happens next, right? So we registered, we set registration, and then we hit save, and then some new options popped up. So this whole section is new. I think the poll may have been there automatically when you hit save, but the registration and email settings wouldn't have been there otherwise. So in this class I just scheduled, 0 people have registered. But let me switch over back now to this actual meeting that we're in now. So you can see what it looks like, because this is exactly how I scheduled this meeting, right? So it's not recurring, right? It's just a registration link that I sent to you all earlier. As you can see, 39 registrants approved, 29. Uh-oh, did I miss somebody? Uh-oh, Marty, sending it to her now. She must have registered right before the session, and I'm sorry, I missed her. Hopefully she'll show up. So if you saw what I just did, there were people pending approval, and I just clicked approve, right? And now I have a list of approved people, right? And so these are all the people who were scheduled for the group today. I denied one person, not because I wouldn't let them here. I didn't want them to be here, but because they decided they wanted to go to the other session. And so I just went ahead and changed it here. But you can see that that means Avro right now couldn't come to this session if she wanted to, right?
Can you show us what the students would be looking at when they attempt to register?
So the truth is, it's exactly what you saw, right? When you registered for this meeting, you saw a registration link. Let's see. Well, we'll try it. Let me see. Let me just show you a couple more things first, because the truth is, it's exactly like what you did, right? I gave you a little form to fill out, and then when you filled it out, I approved it like a day later or something. You got an email with a link. You clicked on the link, and here you are. It's basically that same process. You can set up a couple things to look at here. In here, under registration, you can manage the attendees, right? You click on edit, and here, like we just looked at, are the people who are approved, the people who are pending approval. You can search for people by name. If someone's in the group who, shouldn't be there anymore for some reason, you could cancel their registration. You could resend the confirmation. So this is one thing I did this morning. I chose everybody and I resent the confirmation email, and that's automatic. It just, when I click it once and it sends it all to everybody. So that's what you could do before the meeting, before your class, so that everyone has a reminder of the link. And I do recognize there are issues with students being able to access this information in their email. I totally understand that.
Eric?
Mhm.
Yeah, it's Kristen. So when they register and then you have this, so you're sending them this link, and once they're registered, is their registration, the link that they'll be using, is that unique to them?
Yes.
Or,
Yes, it's so that's one of the things about registration that took me a minute to figure out. They can't share their link with anybody else, and you can't just copy a link to the meeting to send to them.
yeah.
So if they do, I'll go ahead and share this. I was going to share it later, but I'll share it now. If for some reason you have a student who just can't find that email, you've gone here a few times. Sorry, Arnita, and I've resent the confirmation email, and she checks it again, and I didn't get your email. I didn't get your email. I don't know what you're talking about. There's a little trick here. You can go into here for that one student or those 3 students or whoever they are that just can't find in their email. You can copy the confirmation email here. This is what is sent exactly. So Roberto, you asked that question. This is precisely what's sent to that student, that individual student, right? So for Arnita, if I go to copy here next to Arnita, this link here is unique to her. So I could put that into a WhatsApp message, even a text message, I suppose.
Oh, so then you're sending it to her, but not through email because she's having issues with email.
Or you could send it through your own email. Maybe she gets your emails, but she doesn't see the Zoom emails for some reason. Because the Zoom emails have just come from the system, right? So if you could just, copy all this and email it from you directly, maybe your students, they see your emails, but for some reason they can't get to the Zoom emails. But this is a unique link for Arnita. This is not a link I can share with anybody else. So that's one workaround for students who can't, or just not able to access the email in the way that they need to be able to get this stuff automatically. And the truth is, that same link will work the whole semester. It's not like they have to do this every week. If they can find that link, put it somewhere where they can get to it, it will always work for them. It is unique, and it won't work for other students.
The link is unique, but the password is the same for everybody?
Yeah, the truth is the password is, I don't know, the password is sort of funny because they don't actually enter the password. You click on the link and you just go in. The password is embedded somehow. So password, I'm not even sure exactly why that's part of it, really. A couple things to point out here is that you can, it's not required, but you can edit the email, right? So I'm going over to email settings. Actually, here's one thing to point out. You want to check that the email here listed is your email that you actually use. By default, it's going to say the CUNY First email, which I don't even know how to check that email, right? So Eric Appleton 94 or whatever, you want to edit that and put in your real email if you're going to get alerts of like when students register for the class. But you can edit what email it gets sent to here.
Hi there, how are you? Good. I'm having issues with my business ATM.
Yeah. Okay. And this is where you can modify the confirmation email to registrants. So if you click on edit here, so you're just kind of looking out for edit on the right side here.
Eric, we were all invited to this through registration.
Yeah.
If I'm not mistaken. Yet I joined this meeting by manually typing in the meeting number and the passcode.
Oh, really? Well, are you
So
logged into Zoom?
I have a Zoom account. Yeah, I'm on my own.
Are you logged in at the moment? Are you logged in when you did it?
I signed into my Zoom account and I had somehow collected numbers for this meeting, I think from your initial email and then also from the passcode that came out in the confirmation email.
Okay.
One of the confirmation emails you sent out had a passcode.
Yeah. Okay. All right. I'm not an expert at this, so yeah, okay. So I'm not sure what's going on there. So maybe there are workarounds here that you'll find. This is the place where you can modify the confirmation email. So if you want to put some extra notes in here, you could do this on a weekly basis, or you could just do it once. It's not the most friendly thing, but this is where I put notes about what we were going to do today in the email I sent out.
One question about the confirmation email.
Yeah.
You know, like when you want to resend the confirmation email, you could do that every week. Can you make it include attachments or not?
Yeah.
I don't believe so. Not from Zoom. No. No, I think the only thing you can do in terms of customizing that email is you have a couple little spaces. You can change the subject. You can add a note in here. I think that's about it. Yeah.
Eric, what if you use your own email to send the confirmations? Can you send an attachment then, or still no?
You could, but you wouldn't be sending the Zoom link with that email. You can't send a Zoom link to the meeting through your own email. You could send the Zoom registration link, but that would kind of send them back to the form, and they fill out the form again, and then they get a confirmation letter. It's sort of a wild goose chase. If you want to send them the Zoom link, that's through Zoom and not through your own email.
Even if you copy the link and send it to them?
What link are we copying? I mean, you mean that unique link that everyone gets?
Yeah.
You could do that, but you're stuck copying. You're sending an individual email to each person in your class.
Okay.
Because you'd have to copy each individual link separately.
Okay.
Okay. Okay. One more thing to point out. I would recommend that if you're going to use registration, and maybe you don't, but if you're going to use registration, you probably do manual approve, because then you're approving individually the students that come. Or if you're setting up a meeting or a workshop or something, that you might manually approve, because then you're one by one you're approving people instead of it being automatic. You could do it automatically though if you think that's not an issue. If the only people who are going to get the registration link are your students, maybe that's fine, but it does mean you could have people show up in the registration who maybe you didn't invite. You might want to turn this on so you get an email when someone registers, so you get an alert. And you probably don't want them to share this on social media, so I've turned that link off. The registration link, that is. And there's in the form itself, you can add some separate things. So what I did in my form for you all is I asked you to put your phone number, but I didn't require it, right? So if I did put a check here, that means you would have to give me your phone number. The last name is required by default. I think your name is, and there's other stuff you could put here, but it's mostly not appropriate for students. You can ask custom questions if you want. I don't know if it's important in the registration, but for this is where I set up these questions for you when you registered for this workshop. So I asked you what campus you work at, what's your role, and those two were required questions, and then a couple questions that were not required. Like if anyone wanted to give me any information that I should know about when I plan this workshop. So you can create, you just go to new question, type in your question, you can do multiple choice if that's useful. I'm not sure how useful this is, but maybe in your registration. So that's it for now. What I'd like to do is give you 15 or 20 minutes in breakout groups to try this stuff out on your own. What I'm going to do is I'm going to send a link. Let's see, I'm going to send a link to the group with a task for everybody. So, one moment. I want to make sure you have time to practice this. So this is the task I have for the breakout group. When you open it, you'll notice that time is way off and was optimistic, but you'll notice it's going to ask you to make a copy of the document. It's not necessary that everyone in the group makes a copy of that document, but if you like, you can. I'm going to ask that in each group, at least one person logs into their Zoom account and shares their screen so that everyone can see what's going on, right? So that you're always looking at a Zoom screen together.
Don't we have to log out of this though in order to get into our own Zoom accounts?
No, you should be able to get to a browser, you know, opening up Explorer, Safari, whatever, going to zoom.us, logging in. It won't interfere with this meeting. Because at that point, what you're doing,
we can be on 2 Zoom meetings at once on the same computer.
Well, you're not going into a meeting. What you're doing is looking at your settings. So, like, for example, let me show you again. Like, so you're logging in to here. So as you can see, I can sign out here.
Yeah.
And nothing happened to the meeting itself, right?
I
could sign in.
Sorry.
Say it again.
Should it be somebody who has a CUNY Zoom account already?
It could, doesn't have to be. It should be a professional account, but it doesn't. So hopefully there'll be enough people with those accounts. I'll make the groups fairly large to see. Hopefully that will work.
Maybe you could people could raise their hands who has a professional and or Zoom account.
So who has a professional or Zoom account? Good question. Seeing Vanessa, Brian, anyone else have a professional or Zoom account?
I do.
Maggie, Kate, okay. Vanessa and Maggie, okay. Got it, thank you. So let me break out the groups here real quick. So one other thing that we need a volunteer who will take some notes on questions you have, challenges that you run into maybe.
I will take notes.
In your group, okay. Sorry, I'm looking for one more. Oh, Vanessa, yeah, there we go. Okay, and so I'm hoping that somebody in each group, everyone has a link to the task. So your task is to look at the settings and then see if you can schedule a recurring meeting with registration. You'll have about 20 minutes, so hopefully that's enough time to do this. The last step, here are the details on the class you're scheduling. The last piece will be to share the registration link among people in your group and see if you can register for the class and get a confirmation email, all those steps. So I think I'm gonna go ahead and open up the room. So I'll give you about 20 minutes and we'll come back. So we have just a few minutes left. I wanted to hear, you know, what went well, what didn't go so well, what you decided along the way.
I'll start. In our group, the issue was that none of us had a CUNY First account so far, so we couldn't practice with that item. So Maggie used her CUNY account that she had been using last semester anyhow. That you have to make sure that you allow students to rejoin was something that we decided on, because students may have weak Wi-Fi. So that's an option that you might want to think of, because if they get kicked off because of their Wi-Fi, then they can't get back on. So, and you have to save before other options can be chosen when you're doing the registration, and allow for multiple devices, but you have to be aware that if 2 devices have sound on, one of them needs to be muted or there'll be background feed for that. And that was probably it. And the rest was kind of what you didn't know, you'll just learn as you go along, like we did this past semester. So
you used a registration feature and they get kicked off, they can't log back in?
If you opt for them, to not be able to rejoin?
That's only if you kick them out because they were behaving badly. It's not if they get kicked out by accident because of their internet connection. That's a totally different thing, by the way. Totally different.
Right, but if you opt that people can't rejoin, isn't it, even if they leave, they can't rejoin? Oh, okay.
Oh, it's different rejoining. Okay, I didn't know that.
We didn't understand that part. That wasn't what we.
That setting is there for if you manually remove them from a meeting for bad behavior and you don't want them to be able to join again. But if they just like, you know, whatever, leave the meeting for a minute, of course they can come back. It has nothing to do with that setting.
Okay.
Okay.
Good to know.
Yep. And that's it. That's all I got.
A lot.
Thank you, Karen. Who else?
Sure.
We also were not able to really do it because even though the person in our group who has a pro account, like it's with her company. So it's like companies set administrative whatever, and then it's hard to really see all the options. I think we do need like the CUNY account to see all the options that we're supposed to be able to see.
Yeah, Eric, that was me, and I don't know why, but I ended up in a basic instead of being able to use my usual. I don't have to be first, but I do have a professional account, so I don't know what happened.
If you have basic, then you couldn't do the registration? Is that the way it is? Eric?
No. We weren't able to find the registration.
We couldn't find the way to register people, basically.
Eric, is that accurate? If you only are using a basic account, you can't do all the registration functions?
Well, Kate, could you share your screen and we could take a look real quick?
I'm not sure you want me to do this. Seriously, you don't have much time. You know what? I'll stay later if people want to see it. Really, it's because by the time I fumble around, you want to hear from other people, I think.
Okay. Thanks.
But it makes sense that the basic would not have that feature. I think only the pro accounts have that.
Well, hopefully at this point, at least soon, everyone will have access to a pro account if they don't right now. Hopefully that is coming soon. Any other things to takeaways? We do just have a few more minutes. Major takeaways or things that you learned along the way that you want to share? I know some people
Venice, actually, I'm sorry, I have a question. I did not have the CUNY account, but I had a York College Learning Center account. And so we were able to create the registration, and I emailed it to Venicia and the other people in my group, Pamela and Miss Bacula. So Venicia, when I sent, what was that email? That email that you got then back from me, did that have the link to an actual meeting?
I didn't check the link.
Yes,
it did. Yes, it did.
Oh, wow, okay. So, thank you.
Eric, I have a question. The option only authenticated users can join. Should that be checked or not?
No, because that would mean that only people who have Zoom accounts could join.
Okay.
Your students don't have Zoom accounts, so no.
Okay.
Oh, Eric, I have a basic account too that I use for tutoring, and it does not have that feature.
Which feature is that? Registration?
Yeah, I'm looking at it now. It doesn't have it.
Good to know.
That's good to know. It wasn't us.
So I'm going to start moving on to some resources and that sort of thing. But one thing I want to point out is that, you know, some people are finding reasons why registration is not the right tool for them, and that's fine. I do want to make it clear that, I mean, it was a recommendation based on my own experience. It's not a mandate or anything. It's just up what you think will work for your program. So you should do what you think works.
Can you show us how the attendance is tracked?
Oh, thank you for pointing that. That's one of the things I wanted to point out.
Can I ask you a quick question while you're setting that up about registration?
Go ahead.
So I would like to use the registration function. What if some students can't figure it out? Can they still come to the class?
If they can't figure it out, what you're going to want to do is go into this section. You're all looking at my Zoom screen, hopefully?
No.
No.
Oh, I didn't share. That was right. So what you'll want to do is go to, oh, sorry, I just sometimes don't know if I'm in the right place. Okay. You'll want to go here, right, for this particular meeting, right, for your class, you're going to want to go down to the registration where you can see all your registrants. And you're going to go in here to edit so you can see the full list. And I'm picking on Arnita again. Sorry, Arnita. But Arnita just can't figure out, you know, it's for whatever reason, it's not getting to her. You can go in here to copy the unique. This is where you would copy the confirmation letter that is going to her automatically, but she's just not receiving.
So
No, but I think Eric, I think the person was saying, what if the student can't even do the registration?
Fill out a form, put their name and phone number in a form. That's basic stuff that you're going to be doing in your intake with them. That seems like it's another issue. Like, I mean, if your students are having trouble with that, it seems like there's some basic stuff to work on because they're going to have to do that stuff in your class.
Yeah.
Okay. They have to be able to interact through their phone, computer in some way. I mean, that form is just like it's just 5 questions, including your name and phone number, right? But if somebody can't find the confirmation link that's sent to them, then you can go to them individually in registration. Whoops, yeah. And copy that unique.
But like in a pinch, you could just send them the meeting number and the passcode. Am I wrong?
Well, your experience seems to support that. That wasn't something I had seen before. So
because I registered for this class, but I got on it manually.
Maybe.
So I don't know.
You could try it and see what happens. I don't know.
Yes, you can.
Let me show you the attendance thing because that's actually really important. So we looked at meetings at the top, like all this, you know, your settings section here, your meetings where you schedule reports. There's interesting stuff here that's not necessary, but it can be useful. So if you go to reports, there are 2 main sections, usage and meeting. Meeting, you can see, it's another place to see where your registration and who's registered for your meetings. You can also see the results of polls. Like, so if you do a poll as a quiz, or, you know, and you want to go back later and see what the results were, they're all saved in here. But in terms of attendance is under usage. So you go to reports and then go to usage. It's only going to list meetings that have ended, I believe. Like, so it doesn't list this current meeting. This would be a good one to look at, but it doesn't show up here yet. And I haven't, this account is new to me, so there's not much here. Let me see here. Let me see if there's something earlier this week. Kate and I had a meeting to talk about tech help for students on Wednesday, yesterday. And so you can see here the tech help for students. I have my screen zoomed, which is why it's so big. But if you go here to the end, you can see there were 3 participants. And this is a link that you can click on. And there they are. These are the 3 people who came to that meeting. And it shows actually how long they stayed. You can export it, I think, as a spreadsheet. Or, yeah, export with how long the meeting was. I don't know if that's useful or not. But if you had a large group, it would show just the students who came, not the students who were registered, but just the people who came for the session. So for me, I thought that was really helpful because otherwise I was taking screenshots and writing down names. And
that seems really helpful.
Yeah.
What is Zoom Rooms? I see this thing at the top that says has Zoom Rooms.
I think that's where you have like an actual conference room that's wired for Zoom through a television. And
so that's not us. Like we're not doing that, right?
No. Yeah.
It's not breakout rooms, right?
It's not breakout rooms, no.
This attendance tracking is only possible if they register.
I don't know. It's not actually. I think it's any meeting you run. It's going to be there. But But if someone doesn't put their right name in, it's going to show iPhone was there for 34 minutes.
Right.
And so, and for me, my personal experiences was not every student would change their screen name. Other people may have had different experiences. Okay, so just a couple things in the last minute. We're actually over time. I'm going to email this stuff to you so you'll have these links. We are offering some workshops this fall that we will send you a link to what we have. It's in draft right now. So that's some of the stuff that we'll do, and we'll send this to you through email. I'm doing office sessions or office hours. So it's like if you want to time to have a individual conversation about a teaching question or you're troubleshooting a problem, please feel free to register. I can't give you a link easily right now, but I'll send it. I'll email it to you as soon as we're done. We have a Schoology group that's just for teachers, where you can sign up, post, share information with other teachers about distance learning. There's a lot of information up there already. I'm sending that to the chat in case you want to sign up. Actually, and I can send the CUNY PD offerings in the chat. And then there's the Zoom protocol. This is the thing I was mentioning earlier. The Zoom security protocol from CUNY. I will put that in the chat.
Eric, are you going to email this to us as well?
I am, yeah. So just in case you want all this stuff now. And then here are there some this 45-minute webinar from Zoom on using Zoom for education is actually pretty good. I would recommend it. You don't necessarily have to give it 45 minutes. You could skip around in it, but it kind of goes through all the basics. Setting up a class, using breakout rooms, using annotation, all this stuff. So if you feel like you want an introduction to some of those basics, I'll send this link as well. And then there's some stuff on registration that has these details again, if there's something that you didn't understand. Or,
You're going to send us all this.
I'll send this document here to you all after we meet, after we're done. So I think that's it. I'll stick around for a little while in case anyone wants to talk. Any final thoughts, questions, comments?
Very helpful.
Thank you so much. This was great. Thank you, Eric.
Thank you, Eric.
Thank you.
Thank you, Eric.
Very welcome. Looking forward to see you all soon.
Indeed.
I'll stick around and have.
Hi, Eric. I just had a question about when you copy the invitation, you said that everybody has their own link. So if I copy the invitation, I could send it in one email. And like, how does their own link work? How can I send one email to everybody?
The way, yeah, so let me show my screen again here. If you want to send a link to everybody with using registration, then the best way to do that is letting Zoom do it. So if you go to the meeting and go into the registration for the meeting, let's see here. So I have all these people are approved. This is this meeting right here, right? The way that I would do it is I would select everybody and click resend confirmation email. But that's Zoom sending it to everybody. Because they each get their own email, and every email it has a customized link within it. I don't know of a way that you could send an email from your own email account that would be one email to everybody.
So you can only do it through here.
Yeah.
Through the Zoom, okay.
If you use registration. If you do it differently, so you set up an ID and a password, you could send that to everybody, and that's probably what people have been doing already. And that's fine. I mean, it's not like that's bad. If maybe that's what works for you. For me, I felt like I preferred this method because, you know, if Arnita acts up in class, I can drop her. I have everyone's full name. I don't know. There's reasons why I like it. For me, it fits my organization, but I do understand it's a struggle. It makes some things harder. So.
Right, okay, so just even, it says resend confirmation, even though you didn't send it yet.
Well, as soon as you approve somebody, they will get an automatic confirmation email. So if you,
okay.
Like you may have set it up, it depends on how you set this part up here, but if you set it up to manually approve, as soon as you individually approve somebody's registration, an email will go to them.
Okay.
If you set it to automatically approve, then as soon as they finish the application, they're going to get an email. It doesn't wait for you to approve it, they just get it.
Okay.
You can resend it later on by logging in here and doing it, you know, here. You could do it. This doesn't have to be everybody. You could say, you know, if
So okay, so each
him, you know.
So each time before class, we can keep doing this to send them a new link.
Yeah, exactly. Like if it's a few hours before class or however you normally do that.
Okay.
The morning of the class or the evening before or something, you could hit. So one thing I do is I click at the top here. I should point this out to everybody, but I click at the top. You could choose people individually, right? But you can also just click at the top here and it'll highlight everybody, and then everybody on that page, and then you hit resend. Unfortunately, then you have to go to the second page and do it again. Hit resend. Go to the third page.
Oh, so it's only for that page. Okay.
Yeah, it depends on how many students you have, like how many pages there'll be. You know, then you hit resend each time.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
Eric, in using the registration feature, do you also use waiting room?
For me, like today, I wasn't quite ready for everyone to come in at 5 minutes till. So I turned the waiting room on. But then when I was ready to start, I turned the waiting room off. I didn't want to have to click each time.
Oh, you can turn it off?
How you can? Oh yeah, for sure. Here, I'll show you. Can I show you? Let me see. I can't. Let me take a screenshot here. You can't see my Zoom options. Let me do something real quick.
Yeah, because what I found last term when I did use the waiting room feature, but what I realized was if someone came in late and I was in a breakout room, I couldn't tell that they were waiting for me. It didn't appear.
Exactly. And,
So my students
I've had
would
the
call
same
me and
problem.
say, I'm
Yeah.
in the waiting, you know, I'm waiting. And I was like, I didn't know.
Right.
I've had the same problem. I actually tried, like, I would see somebody in the waiting room and then I would assign them to a breakout room, but it didn't work because I had never actually let them into the group. It seems like it's like a bug. I prefer to just turn off the waiting room once people show up, but yeah, I can only do that if you know who you're expecting are only the students in the class. The way it's a security feature, but it's not necessary if you
register.
If you register, then nobody else is going to show up.
Right. So
are you ready for them to be in the room or not? You know. Yeah, I turned it off, and then just people show up, and I just can go ahead and focus on what I'm doing. I don't have to keep clicking. And so, did I share yet? You see this? This is I can't share this screen easily, but if you're the host, you won't see it now because you're not the host. But if you're the host, there's this security option. Have you seen that?
Mm-hmm.
So you have to be the host, but if you click on that, it's an easy way to just turn off the chat, turn on and off the waiting room. If you have a real problem and someone shows up and Zoom bombs, you can lock the meeting, you can kick, like, it's just an easy way to get to those security features.
wait, how did you get to that? How did you get there?
What
did you click on?
So you don't have that option. It's on your.
Oh, security. Yes, I remember that feature. Yeah, you only have it if you're a host. So
You have to be a host, right? So it's this button here, and then this menu pops up, and so you can just put a check here, turn it on, turn it off. So I turn it on, and like when I'm ready for the class, I turn it off, and then everyone just comes in.
That's a good idea, actually.